Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this meeting of the Development and Property Committee on Monday, September the 9th at 9:30 a.m. As we gather today, we acknowledge on behalf of the County of Renfrew and our community that we are meeting on the traditional territory of the Omawini Algonquin people. We thank the Omawini people and express our respect and support for their rich history, and we are extremely grateful for their many and continued displays of friendship. We also thank all the generations of Indigenous peoples who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. Has roll call been taken, Evelyn?
Yes, thank you, Chair, and we have quorum.
Thank you. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof? Seeing none, then we'll move on to the adoption of the open minutes of August the 13th, 2024. And could I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor from Greater Madawaska, seconded by Councillor from Town of Arnprior. Are there any omissions or corrections? Seeing none, all in favor? And that's carried. And then we'll move to the adoption of the closed minutes of August the 13th, 2024. And once again, can I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor from Laurentian Valley, seconded by Councillor from Town of Petawawa. Any additions or corrections? Seeing none, all in favor? And that's carried. So we have no delegations at this time, and we'll move on to the Development Property Department report, and we'll start with Director Davis, please.
Thank you, Chair. And you see in the committee package, and good morning, everyone. As you can see in the committee package, no director's report at this time, but I wouldn't mind this opportunity to kind of rediscuss our diligent issues with our software. So we're still working through processes, again, through Evelyn, Gwen, and Connie. Whenever you need support for the diligent reports, please reach out to them as we work through the process. And this is, I think, the last time I'll do it. I know I've said this 3 times now, and I'll leave it at that. And Chair, that's it for my report. We can pass it off to Melissa and her reports.
Thank you, Director Davis. And just a question when we're talking about diligence. So on the closed portion for County Council, I only saw the development and property reports, but on the public portion, all of the committee reports were there. Is that a problem with my computer, or should all the reports be in the county portal?
They will be eventually. We haven't gotten all the because we were just recently asked for the closed session. We will get your names in there and get them so that you can see all the reports.
Thank you. Appreciate it. So then we will move on to the ECTEV Economic Development Report, and Ms. Markwood, please.
Good morning, and through you, Chair. First item on the Economic Development Report is the Ontario Senior Achievement Award. So this is a program run by the Ontario government, and it recognizes seniors above the age of 65 who've made significant contributions to their community or the province. And the deadline to submit a nomination is October 1st, 2024. Number 2 on the report is Taste of the Valley. So we had Taste of the Valley in Killaloe this past Saturday on a cold and rainy day. And despite the poor weather, we still had over 500 people come out and just under 60 vendors participate. So it was a good time. And the first time being held in Killaloe and was a great success. Upcoming events include Petawawa on September 28th, October 19th in Cobden, and December 14th in Renfrew. And just a reminder that the expressions of interest to host a Taste of the Valley event in 2025 or 2026 are due September 27th. Third item on the report is just to let everyone know, registration is now open for the Municipal Agriculture, Economic Development and Planning Forum that we are holding here October 22nd to 24th. So the event kicks off with a welcome reception, followed by a full day bus tour, and then conference day on the final day. And early bird pricing is in effect until September 29th. And that concludes my ECTEV report.
Thank you, Ms. Markwood. So we'll go back to information item number 1, the Ontario Senior Achievement Award. Comments, questions? Seeing none, item number 2 is the Taste of the Valley. And finally, item number 3 is the Municipal Agriculture, Economic Development and Planning Forum. Councillor from Greater Madawaska.
Thank you. I was just looking at it earlier. Is there a cost to this?
Ms. Markwood?
Through you, Chair. Yes, there is. So there are day rates as well as full conference rates. The early bird registration rate for the full conference, I believe, is $250. I'm just pulling it up now in front of my screen so I can confirm that. If my technical, if this comes up, and full conference rate is $275. I stand corrected for the full event. And then there are day rates as well as rates to attend the welcome reception on the Tuesday night.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I didn't actually pull up the registration page. I was looking for it on the web page, so thank you.
Thank you for that. Any other comments or questions? I see none, so then we will go back to Ms. Markwood and the Ottawa Valley Tourist Association report.
Thank you. And number 1 on the report is an update on the Eastern Ontario Rail Trail Loop development, which I've reported previously about this project that includes the OVTA as well as County of Renfrew, Ontario's Highlands Tourism Organization, and Lanark and Frontenac counties. And this is just to confirm that Ontario's Highlands Tourism Organization has received through FedDev to support this project. So that was really great news. Number 2 on the report is the development of a Renfrew County food guide. So this is being done in collaboration with the economic development team. And this is just a local food guide to support and promote local food producers. It will be a digital guide that will be available as download off the OVTA website. And it's free for any food producer, growers to participate and have a listing within the guide. Anyone that offers on-farm, farm stand, or roadside sales are encouraged to submit their listing by this week, September 12th. And number 3 on the report is just an update on our negotiations and discussions with the City of Pembroke and the Town of Petawawa regarding the municipal accommodation tax. So staff did meet with City of Pembroke officials on August 22nd just to review a draft agreement. So that is being fine-tuned and then it will be presented to the OVTA Board of Directors for approval. And just a reminder, the City of Pembroke is implementing a municipal accommodation tax as of January 1st, 2025 at a rate of 4% on hotels, motels, short-term rentals, and campsites within the municipality, and 50% of the revenues generated less the collection and administration costs will be shared with the OVTA as the eligible tourism entity to promote Pembroke as a tourism destination. And on September 4th, I met with the Town of Petawawa staff regarding their potential implementation and working with them on a draft agreement before it goes to their council. Number 4 on the report is just community outreach. So we were at the Cultural Night Market in Arnprior on August 24th with our economic development team to promote tourism and economic development services. And staff noted they connected with a number of new residents to the area who were interested in learning more about the Ottawa Valley and tourism opportunities and just being aware that they're now residents of Renfrew County. And number 5 on the report is Destination Ontario's Ontario Industry Health Check report that was released for the end of May 31st, 2024. And there are some highlights in the report there, including an increase to the travel price index of 1.5% compared to June of 2023. And that short-term rental occupancy rates in June in 2024 have underperformed on average by about 12.3%. Compared to June 2019 levels for all regions, while the rates have actually gone up. So there's just some interesting tidbits there. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Markwood. So once again, going back to information item number 1, the Eastern Ontario Rail Trail Loop Development. Comments or questions? Yes, Councillor from Petawawa.
Thank you, Chair, and through you, this is very exciting news, and maybe I should know this, but I guess I don't. Could you just describe what the entire Eastern Ontario Rail Trail Loop is? Is it just our Algonquin Trail, or is it some others?
And through you, Chair. Yes, so this rail development follows the Ottawa Valley Recreation Trail through Lanark County, parts of Renfrew County, and then connects down in Frontenac County and creates a loop connecting with the Cataraqui Trail. So this will be a loop route that will be promoted to cyclists as well as ATVers and all trail users. And so this is a multi-year project that's occurring with consultants that have been hired to do the assessment of the trail, assessment of assets, identifying opportunities for development, whether it be business opportunities, tourism opportunities like that, to be able to service the visitors and consumers who'll be using that rail trail.
Follow up?
Yes, thanks, Chair. So you probably can't tell me how much money and where it's going, but it looks like it's a joint project between us and some other counties. Do we know how much of the funding we're going to get to use in our area, or is it all being used in other areas?
Through you, Chair. So we are not receiving any direct funding. The Ontario Highlands Tourism Organization was the lead applicant on this project, and so the county and the OVTA are a partner on this project. So the OHTO is the one facilitating that whole project, and will be receiving the funds from FedDev. But all of those funds related to this project will be to develop the route that includes the county of Renfrew as well as Frontenac and Lanark counties.
Any other comments or questions? Actually, Councillor from Petawawa just covered the ones I wanted to ask, and I guess I'm just curious that this is great news because it certainly helps offset some of our costs. Can any of that money be used for the purchase of that section of the trail that's potentially in the process?
No, the funds for this are not for the purchase of property. They're for development of a tourism product.
Thank you. Seeing no other questions on item number 1, then we'll move to item 2, the Renfrew County Food Guide. Questions or comments? The only comment I had is there a list that you have of food producers in the county, or is that something that our lower tier municipalities have to provide, or is there a reach out to some of the individual producers?
Great question. No, we have a pretty extensive database between the OVTA and economic development through the OVTA membership, as well as all the Taste of the Valley producers and suppliers and vendors, as well as organizations that we assess during the development of the culinary tourism strategy for the OVTA. But of course, if there are others out there within Renfrew County that are not on our list, then we do ask our municipalities to share that opportunity within their current communities.
Thank you. And Councillor from Town of Arnprior.
Thank you, Chair. Is there a timeline for the roadside vendors? I know in Arnprior we have 3 vendors that are there for the summer, we call it, but they're not there for the winter. Would they be eligible to be part of the guide?
Through you, Chair, yes. Anyone, regardless of seasonality or time frame of when they operate, is eligible to be included. They just have to submit their information by September 12th to be included in this round.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions on item number 2? Seeing none, item number 3 is the municipal accommodation tax. Yes, Councillor from Greater Madawaska.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I know, I'm not sure, but Pembroke, I don't believe, has a licensing for short-term accommodations, and they're putting a 4% on short-term accommodations. Do we know how they're tracking who is short-term accommodation or not?
As far as we've been told, they are not licensing. They are applying the MAT to this just to cover that, but as far as I know, I'm not aware of how they will be enforcing that.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions on the MAT tax? Seeing none, then we'll move to item number 4, the community outreach. Councillor from Town of Arnprior.
Thank you, Chair. Just a shout out to say thanks to David and Aaron for being in Arnprior for our cultural night, which was a huge success. It even stayed open a little longer than we expected, and then just to say thank you very much.
Thank you. I always like to hear about the successful events. The warden.
Yes, just to echo my friend from Armpire, it was a great event, and it was very nice to see our staff there participating. And I hope in the future everybody gets the opportunity to attend that event. It's very well run, lots of variety, and lots of people out going up and down the street. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on item 4? Seeing none, then item 5 is the Ontario Tourism Industry Health Check Report. Yes, Councillor from Laurentian Valley.
It's interesting to see that with the, I guess considering the exchange from the American dollar to the Canadian, that it hasn't picked up a little bit more. And further to that then, has there been any promotion down through the States from Renfrew County?
Thank you for the question, and through you, Chair. Our marketing efforts are limited to within Ontario and Canada, just due to budgets. But we work with Destination Ontario and Destination Canada, whose mandates are to promote outside of Canada. So Destination Ontario, as well as Destination Canada, have strong strategies that promote and market directly to U.S. consumers. And so we jump on some of those campaigns when we can afford to buy into some of those campaigns, but typically that's left to our provincial and national marketing organizations, as well as our travel trade partnership, who does that work.
Any other questions or comments? I mean, it is interesting to see the increase in the tourists coming from Europe, so good news on that front. Seeing no further questions, then we will move into the Enterprise Renfrew County report, and back to you, Ms. Marquardt.
Thank you. And lastly, the first item on the Enterprise Renfrew County report is just that information sessions for the fall session of Starter Company Plus program has begun. So those info sessions were held on August 13th and 15th with 47 people attending, and that resulted in 16 applications coming through for the fall program. And so 16 applications, 13 who are eligible to pitch for grant programs, and they began training on September 5th. Number 2 on the report is just workshops and events. So we held 2 webinars in August with the Canadian Intellectual Property Office and PARO with 25 people attending. This month we've got some neurodivergent series workshops happening on September 17th and September 24th. And then October is Small Business Month, and so ERC has been collaborating and working with a number of municipalities across Renfrew County to support small business events in local municipalities. And you will see that on the report there. So October 7th in Calabogie, October 9th in Barry's Bay, October 16th in Whitewater, October 18th in Petawawa, and then on October 21st are some free virtual webinars that are available. There is a cost for attending the in-person events, which basically goes to cover off the cost of the food and workshop materials at $28.25 a person, but there is no fee to attend the virtual workshops on October 21st, and event registration is required. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Marquardt. Going back to information item 1, the Starter Company Plus. Questions or comments? Seeing none, item number 2 are the workshops and events. I just find this neurodivergent series very, very interesting. Just give us a little more on what actually that's all about.
Yes, thank you, and through you, Chair. So neurodivergent, there's 2, the series, there's 2 workshops. One is on neurodivergent entrepreneurship, and the other one is on supporting employees who have neurodivergent. So those that could potentially be on the spectrum, have neurodivergent challenges in that aspect, and so it's providing information for employees and employers on how to better meet those needs in the workplace and to be able to support those employees.
Thank you. Appreciate that detail. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, then we'll go to the forestry report. And Ms. Rose, please.
Thank you, Chair. Information item number 1 is just some communications updates. I attended an update call from the Ontario Forest Industry Associations mid-August. This is part of a larger group in Ontario. Some of our issues are the same, some are different, but the main issues expressed by others in Ontario were the state of the forest sector, mostly to do with the pulpwood crisis, the same as we're facing here. Others are more affected by the more recent announcement of softwood lumber duties. Luckily, a lot of our mills, the last time there was a softwood lumber crisis, switched their market strategies and not a lot of exports to the U.S. from the Ottawa Valley. Also, another issue is the slow movement on pushing the biomass agenda forward, which we've talked about quite a bit at this committee, and the potential impacts of the rail work stoppage, but that seems to have somewhat resolved itself at this point. And of course, species at risk. Most others are dealing with caribou, but we have a number of other species that we face challenges with down here. Information item 1B is myself and Chair Brose attended a board meeting for the Shaw Woods Outdoor Education Center also on August 15th. Although they're gearing up for another school year, they're expecting bookings and participation of students may be impacted by the busing issue. There was a lot of trail use by the public during the summer months, and the addition of that new surplus parking area has been very useful. Information item number 2, more on black ash. I just wanted to bring this to your attention. As you know, protection measures are underway for black ash in some of Renfrew County, and we are required, as well as Public Works and anyone planning development, to do an assessment of black ash trees within that geographic mapped area. We did the first trial of this at the Douglas Tract of the Renfrew County Forest in a spruce plantation we were planning to thin next year. Within that small 3-hectare stand, within or directly adjacent to, there were 32 black ash trees that we assessed. 21 of those we have had to deem healthy and will need to be protected under the Endangered Species Act. I included the information, like the submission, just for your information as part of the package, but you can see on the map that area is no longer viable to be harvested unless there is an exemption to forest management on private land, as we're still waiting to hear about that. So I did send that along to the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks, letting them know that it tripled the amount of time that we had to spend on this area to get it ready for harvest, and in the end that it will not be available to be harvested. And just outlined a number of other questions, concerns, and issues, and I did ask for a response. Have not received one yet. That was about a month ago. And yeah, so this is just kind of an example of this forest is actually a plantation in an old farm field that the idea was to transition the area back to natural forest. Unfortunately, now it will remain a stagnating spruce plantation because we have to protect the scattered black ash trees within that. But yeah, this is just like example number 1 of how our forest management operations are going to be majorly affected by this protection, and a lot of areas will no longer be viable to manage if we have to protect every black ash tree. Item number 3 is an update on the Beachburg Tract. We've talked about this for more than 2 years now, the process there in a very publicly used area. The chemical site preparation is now complete. We did not receive any direct complaints or inquiries from the public, and by all appearances, from what we could tell, the trail closures have been respected. You will have heard me say, and I have a lot of pictures of before this treatment occurred. In the matter of 3 months of growth, the poplar was well over 1 meter tall in some areas. We already have over 42,000 trees growing in the nursery in Kempville to plant in this area. And without that treatment, those trees, we would have been throwing the money away to put those in the ground. They could never survive that level of competition. We do still expect, due to the high level of competition in this area, that we will need to do a brush saw treatment in 2 to 3 years, so we'll be closely monitoring that after the trees get planted next spring. And that concludes my report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Rose. And going back to information item number 1A, the county, the communications updates and the county forester Industry Association meeting on August the 15th. Question, yes, Warden, please.
Thank you, Chair, and through you to Ms. Rose. Can you just remind us what the pulpwood crisis is, and could you also explain what is the cause of the slow movement on biomass?
Through you, Chair. Yes, so almost all of the pulp mills in Ontario have closed now. It's not only affecting us here in Central Ontario, a lot of the big ones in Northern Ontario have closed as well. So without a place to send that low-end material, companies are unable to harvest wood at all in some cases. You can't just take the wood that you want and leave the bad stuff in the forest. You have to take the bad with the good. And without, some mills are stockpiling for now. Some might have smaller markets, but without somewhere to send that roundwood, pulpwood material, it is shuttering mills. And there's just constant announcements of more pulpwood mill closures. And related to that, the biomass agenda has been the industry asking for solutions to this crisis. We know there's not going to be an increase in need in paper. With the digital world we live in now, there are only so many boxes that can be made, but the future, hopefully, is renewable energy, and biomass is the answer to that. It's our only renewable natural resource, and there is a lot of opportunity in areas that are not serviced by natural gas for biomass district heating to be a solution to that. So that's a win-win for the forest sector and for meeting climate change goals. And although there have been funding opportunities put out by the provincial government for biomass projects, there have not been shovels in ground yet. So we're in this limbo area where nowhere to send the wood, waiting for these solutions, and hopefully that will happen soon. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions on 1A? Item 1B. Warden.
Thank you. And again, through you to Ms. Rose. So as I understand, oh, sorry, 1B? I'm sorry, my mistake. I was waiting for 2.
Not a problem. So now we'll move to item number 2, the black ash update, and Warden.
Thank you. So as I'm given to understand it, this tract, we're not able to do anything with it because of 32 ash trees. Is that how I understand this properly?
Through you, Chair. So this is actually a really interesting example that I was happy but unhappy to use as a case study. So the line of geographic protection actually runs right through the tract. So half of it is in Abbotsford and Bromley, half of it's in North Algoma, Wilberforce. So the spruce plantation is in Abbotsford and Bromley, which is protected. So we can't thin that stand, but we will be doing or tendering a small clear-cut area in the other part of the tract. So if that was included, we would be in the same situation of unlikely to be able to harvest because there's black ash everywhere along the edges and scattered within in low areas. But this is just one tract, and this is kind of a taste of what's to come of every area we plan to harvest within the geographic protection area. We'll run into the same issue, and we will not be able to thin this spruce plantation unless there's an announcement about the exemption for forest management on private land before we put our tenders out.
Thank you. Supplementary.
Supplementary.
So, is there any indication that the ministry is aware of this and working to mitigate it?
Through you, Chair. So I have been sending a lot of letters. This has been sent with the document that is included in your package, highlighting the issues in real life. I've asked for a response, haven't received one. I will be attending a meeting with other community forest managers in a couple weeks who I've been talking to a lot about this, but we need to all be saying this out loud. You might remember through the last few years, there's been several letters sent by the county about this issue, but now we're in it. So the time for consultation has passed, but we can still hope for that exemption on private land.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? I'll just add mine because this is an issue that really frustrates me with the total lack of common sense. We work hard to sustainably manage our forests, and now because of a black ash protection, our managed forests are going to remain stagnant and start deteriorating in quality and value. And at the same time, we're protecting a tree that we all know at some point down the road, the emerald ash borer is going to kill them regardless. So I just, again, doesn't seem to make any sense whatsoever, and adds considerable extra time to our staff to go through these exercises without any, apparently any long-term benefit. And maybe just to follow that up, is it time for us at County Council to do more lobbying, or have we done what we can?
If I may, Chair, so through you to the committee members, we've, through Lacey and through the warden and through previous wardens, we've been very vocal on this issue throughout the years, and we can always lobby the government and re-highlighting what we've been doing and the challenging we're facing through our forestry program, our public works programs. By all means, I'm not sure if it's beneficial at this time. We're hoping, as you heard from Lacey, our county forester, we're hoping to get an exemption through this process as we've started down this road already, Chair.
Yes, Councillor from Greater Madawaska.
Thank you. Just through you, Chair, this conversation got me thinking, how do we compare with black ash compared to other areas in the province? Are they very minimal black ash and we have a lot, so that it's going to affect us greater, so that we may have some more, and I'm going to say leverage, but probably not, but I'm just wondering how we compare to the rest of the province.
Through you, Chair, that's a good question. So we're unfortunately on the bleeding edge of this. The reason that this was created and that the geographic area was defined was that in southern Ontario, most of the black ash and other ash species are already dead from emerald ash borer, and the intent is to protect the lingering ash that have survived the attack. Ottawa has been through the wave 10 years ago. We're just at the beginning of it. So although you can see visual mortality along roadsides from emerald ash borer in Renfrew County through most of the highway corridors, as soon as you go into the forest a little bit, there's not a lot of mortality that's happened so far. So we're further behind in the infestation stage. We do have a lot of black ash. I have not observed a lot of mortality within interior forest. And that is the point that I was trying for the county to communicate through all of the consultation. Also, like Northern Ontario, they're not included in the protection yet, but this will be the same issue for them. Unfortunately, or fortunately for Crown land, forest management on Crown land is exempt because of the protections already under the Crown Forest Sustainability Act for endangered species. That doesn't apply to private land. So we're in an interesting mix of, we have half private land here. We have a lot of ash still alive, and yet we are half included, the county, in the geographic protection area. So in my counterparts in other places, they either don't have a lot of ash left alive, or they're much further along in the infestation, and most of the ash that they will be assessing will be deemed not retainable. But they will still have to go through the process of assessing them, so we're kind of in a similar boat.
Councillor from Town of Petawawa.
Thank you, Chair, and through you, it seems like this may have been a program created for Southern Ontario and urban centers in terms of protecting this certain species. And when it was created, not a lot of thought was given to how it was going to advance into our area and affect our ability to harvest our forest. So, and I know we've been advocating, but is there any way we can spin it that way to say that this program probably wasn't created with a harvesting forest in mind? I don't know, just a thought.
Through you, Chair. That was the intent of going through this exercise, to have a real-life example of here's what this is actually going to look like. It does say in one of the publications that they put out that there's 80 million ash trees in Ontario, black ash trees in Ontario. So I did the math on the 30-meter reserve for each one of those, and it's, I don't know, something ridiculous, like a third of Ontario's land mass could be covered in protection area for black ash. But I would like to just remind everybody that this doesn't just apply to forest management, it applies to your public works, road brushing, tree removals, development. All other activities on private land now have to consider that black ash is an endangered species. So that is a whole other level of workload.
And if you don't, you just take the risk of getting caught. Interesting. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, then we'll move to item 3, the Beachburg Tract update. And I see no further questions or comments. So that brings us to our real estate division report. And Mr. Raditz, please.
Thank you, Chair, and through you to the committee. I just have information. Item number 1 is regarding the building condition assessments. So they have been completed, and Roth IAMs have submitted the reports to us, and there will be a summary presentation given to the RCAC Board of Directors tomorrow, and of course County Council on the 25th. There was a total of 42 sites that were where the BCAs were conducted, and which generated about 100 reports. These reports were comprehensive. The average report, I think, was probably about 30 pages per report. So it was it was a lot of effort and a lot of work behind the scenes to coordinate this for the 42 locations. These BCAs were conducted over a period of, I guess, 3 months from March until May. And Chair, I'll just stop there.
Thank you, Mr. Raditz. So we'll deal with item number 1, the building condition assessments. Questions or comments? Certainly looking forward to the details on the report, and again, from just brief conversations with Director Davis, it sounds like, and with Mr. Raditz as well, it sounds like a lot of it is confirmation what staff already knew, but certainly puts it all in black and white. Thank you. And then we'll move to the Planning Division report, and Mr. Howarth, please.
Thank you, Chair. The planning report is attached to the agenda. The information items, item number 1 is an update regarding subdivision activity. So the subdivision called Ida Street subdivision in the town of Arnprior received draft approval, and the developer will now have 3 years to satisfy their conditions before they can proceed with constructing those dwellings. This approval is fairly close to the Grove. It's a interesting development that took into considerations a lot of natural heritage considerations and drainage considerations, and I think that it's going to result in a good plan that will result in 55 new row house dwellings in the town of Arnprior. And item B is the Morrison subdivision received final approval, and so this is for the creation of 12 new row houses in Deep River, so that's an exciting project for them to get some variety into their new housing stock and have those dwellings moving forward. Item number 2 is a information update with regards to GIS. So we entered into a data sharing agreement with Esri. This is the software provider that, for example, ArcGIS or ArcPro, that we have a enterprise license agreement with that provides this software to all, not only the County of Renfrew, but to all local municipalities. We entered into a data sharing agreement where we've given them publicly available data with like roads, property parcels, forest tracts, municipal boundaries, other points of interest. And Esri has now updated their base mapping with the data that we've shared with them, so that's exciting. So that now that staff are using these pieces of software, when you, or not only county staff, but I believe across Canada, when somebody goes to create a base map, Esri has now pre-populated their base maps with this information, which is now available. So hopefully this will result in efficiencies and good public use of our data and knowledge of what's going on in Renfrew County. Also, it's noted that municipalities can also share this data with Esri, so that if you have your own data that you would like to share and contribute, such as trails or municipal parks, parking lot, or other points of interest, that you can share that through our department, and you can contact Angie, and there's no cost to join or participate in that program. Item number 3 is an information update with regards to the provincial policy statement. It seems like every few months we have updated some of the changes that the province has made to their legislation or policy and how it affects Renfrew County. So back on August 20th, the province released a final version of the PPS. So this matter has been before committee and council before, when we've reviewed the draft of the PPS and provided some comments with regards to that. Just as a quick introduction, I'll say there aren't significant major changes that are going to affect Renfrew County. This plan was, the larger impact will be for large and fast-growing municipalities such as Toronto, Ottawa, the GTA especially. This PPS has merged there's another provincial plan called the Growth Plan. The major change to this one is that the province removed the growth plan that applied to the GTA area, or the golden horseshoe area. Sorry for stumbling over those words there. And so it's replacing that and incorporating both of those two documents into one. We did provide a high-level comments on some of the issues that may affect Renfrew County. So the first one is with regards to housing. Obviously, Renfrew County, just like much of Ontario, is in a housing crisis, and we held a housing summit back in April, roughly. I might have that date wrong. With regards to what can the county be doing to address the housing shortage in the area, but also with a specific focus on affordable housing. So there is a target, the change in the policy from needing to establish a target to implementing a target and making that a requirement. So we've highlighted this as a challenge in both the MESA documents and in our housing summit document. When we held that housing summit, for those who attended that, it was highlighted by our development community that the incentivization and encouraging of those creation of those affordable units by the private sector is challenging without monies coming from government, whether that's the province, the federal government, or Renfrew County. So we are looking at this internally, and the county council has looked at this as well with regards to how can we incentivize some affordable housing projects. And so this is part of the recommendation that will be coming towards, I think, this month's county council with regards to the regional incentive program, and also through the Renfrew County Housing Corporation, looking at our housing bylaw and seeing what, as a county of Renfrew, what can we do to support our development community, and especially looking at those affordable, the low-income housing, what can we do to support the growth in those areas. With regards to the rural areas of the policies, there's not a whole bunch of significant changes. The policies still promote and support a diversified rural economy. Some of those policies look like they are reiterating or going back to the policies where the rural settlement areas are the primary areas for growth, and reiterating as well that separation distances with regards to resources should be maintained, and making sure that when we're developing in our rural areas, those uses that could create a conflict with the use of those resources be taken into consideration and not be impacted. With regards to cultural heritage and archaeology, this is going to require some more work for us in the future. The policies have been updated to make sure that we are undertaking early engagement with our Indigenous communities, and we coordinate with them on land use planning matters. So at this time, we're not aware of any provincial guidelines, standards, or recommendations with how this is exactly to be accomplished, but this is going to be something that we'll be considering in the future and probably coming back with future reports or identifying ways that what this policy change means for Renfrew County and how we are going to undertake this consultation. With regards to coordination, there's been a greater emphasis on coordinating amongst planning authorities, whether it's municipalities, public agencies, school boards, secondary school boards, and with the whole goal of making sure that we are working together and collaborating and providing cost effectiveness and facilitate service integration. With regards to climate change, there's been some tweaks to the policies with regard to climate change. So instead of, they've been updated from supporting a plan to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and to planning authorities shall plan to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So this goes in part with item number 3, the next item on the information report with regards to that we are undertaking a climate action plan for the county initiatives, but the policy goes further, say when we're looking at development, we should also take a plan on how we can, whether there's anything we can do to take into consideration any additional approaches to reduce greenhouse gas emissions from our community and the way that we develop. With regards to agriculture, again, not too many changes with regards to that, but there are policies that have been changed to increase housing for agricultural farm help, not just farm help, but on the farms. So instead of just allowing the typical 1 dwelling, the policies have been expanded to allow up to 3 dwellings on a farm. The policies with regards to severing these dwellings are similar to the way that the current PPS works, where you can do a surplus farming severance, but you can't create new lots within the agricultural community. So existing farming operations can have up to 3 dwellings. They won't be able to be severed from each other, so you won't be able to create 3 new lots. But for an existing farm, you can have up to 3 dwellings now on those farms. We will have to update our official plan policies to implement these policies, but it's one of the province's steps towards supporting the farming community in the work that they do. With regards to infrastructure, so that, again, some minor changes, some interesting ones with regards to reiterating that communal services or decentralized services are a way of servicing new development. We brought this report to County Council, but I believe again that will be at this month's County Council. Will be considering that report on municipal service corporations and communal services or decentralized systems. So the province is just reiterating that these are permitted and a way of servicing new development, and municipalities can consume these systems and take over this type of ways to address both water and wastewater services. Another change has been in the partial servicing policies of the plan. So previously, only partial services were permitted to either like round out or infill in a partially serviced area. They amended the policy so that within a rural settlement area, you can expand partially serviced development where it's serviced by individual on-site water services, where there's been a private septic system. This is interesting because this is opposite of how many of our communities have been developed. So for example, in Petawawa and Beachburg and I believe Killaloe, we have the opposite situation where we have water services, but private water, which is opposite of what the policy is allowing. So this is going to be a topic that we'll have to further discuss with our municipalities and perhaps the province of understanding how this change is going to be implemented within Renfrew County. So overall, there are, I'll say, minor impacts for the County of Renfrew, and we'll be working with our local municipal partners to determine how best to implement some of these policy changes, and this may result in a process to amend the official plan to update that. I'll move on to item number 4, the Climate Action Plan update. So as previously mentioned, we are undertaking a this process to create a climate action plan for the County of Renfrew. We've completed phase 2, and we had that presentation from the consultant Ainsworth, who presented much of that data. They've put the final touches on that plan and are now moving on to phases 3 and 4, and that work is currently underway, and they're doing that concurrently. And hopefully, the estimated time for completion of the entire project it would be November 2024. And I'll stop there, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Howarth. So going back up to second here, information item number 1, the 1A, the subdivision update, and the first one being the Ida Street subdivision in Arnprior. Item number 1B is the Morrison subdivision in Deep River. Item number 2 is the GIS update. Councillor from Greater Madawaska.
Thank you, through you, Chair. May relate to this, may not, but it's GIS related. Do we have any way of having mineral rights, areas that have mineral rights in our county put onto the GIS? So if you have a plot of land that's vacant and somebody has mineral rights to it, do we have any way of looking at that?
Through you, Chair, I'll have to bring that back to our GIS coordinator. I don't have the answer at the top of my head. I know we do have some information with regards to the mining resources, but with regards to if anybody's actually put like a claim or is using a claim on those mining resources, I'll have to check with our GIS staff to determine whether that's publicly available or not, something that we can put on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Again, good news that it has certainly come back being a little less expensive. Item number 3 is the provincial planning statement update. Councillor from Greater Madawaska.
Thank you, through you, Chair. And Bruce, just to qualify this, the provincial planning statement, it's to be still read as a whole and not to for all settlement or for subdivisions and everything, that there's not one particular part of the policy that overwrites another part of the policy, that we should look at as a whole?
Yes, that's correct. So yes, you read the document as a whole, and sometimes you'll come into situations where one policy may appear to conflict with another policy, and it does create that's where your professional staff comes in to try to piece that together and determine what is the best use of the land and which policies need to be or should take priority over the other ones if there is that event of the conflict. But at the end of the day, it is the Planning Act has not changed. That decisions made by a planning authority, whether it's the county when we're considering a plan of subdivision, or if it's a local municipality when you're considering a zoning bylaw amendment, that you have to be consistent with the policies of the provincial planning statement, the PPS. But it is read as a whole, and each policy is to be implemented. Thank you.
Supplementary.
Thank you, through you, Chair. And to that, one of the changes looks like this policy, in conjunction with section 2.5.2 of the new planning statement, requiring rural settlement areas to be the focus of growth. That does not negate having growth outside of settlement areas. Is that correct?
Through you, Chair. So, no, this is where it gets interesting, is that it's there to be the focus, but in the rural areas, you are still allowed to have growth in your rural areas. So we take that as saying that, yes, we can still have plans of subdivisions in rural areas, especially for our waterfront areas. We understand those are a resource area for the County of Renfrew and very highly desirable areas. We also know that historically we have a lot of severance applications in the rural areas. Right now we have a very flexible rural severance policy, and Combining that also with the previous policy about minimizing constraints on our rural resource areas, we'll have to make sure that those work together so that when we are developing in our rural areas, that we are doing it in a way that is efficient and not having any impacts, or making sure we reduce or minimize the impacts on those resource areas so that they can be used in the future. Thank you.
Thank you for the clarity.
Any other questions or comments? The warden, please.
Thank you. I've got a couple, which I don't think is surprising. So under housing, in Renfrew County, we do not have the ability to utilize the inclusionary zoning provision. So I'm assuming ability means that all the other statement, that it's explained more fully in the paragraph underneath about financialization and the smallness of our market. Is that what I'm given to understand ability to mean?
Great. Through you, Chair. Yeah, so the ability would mean like we don't have the ability to pass a bylaw and say subdivision developer X, you're proposing 100 units. As part of your approval, you have to provide 15 of those units at an affordable rate. So we don't have the ability to pass that bylaw. Our policies, existing policies, encourage that number of 15%, but we don't have a way to mandate or make it a requirement. And further that, the other, I'll say, commentary was related to just the cost of development in Renfrew County. We've heard from our developers that it is already a challenge in a low growth, slow development area compared to a city of Ottawa where you might have larger profit margins. So that's the commentary that was provided. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And then just the other piece on the agriculture section where it's talked about surplus dwellings, where you indicated that they're unable to sever. So does that mean they're like a permanent series of rental properties attached to the main property, or will they have separate pins? Because that leads me to be a bit confused.
So through you, Chair, so it's not intended that they be separated. So it's meant to be there, especially as farmers hopefully progress or have succession planning for who's going to ultimately own or operate their farm. It was intended to be that you might have multiple generations of people working or living on the farm. Could be for farm help. Could be you're not actually tying it to a specific use, but I don't think the intention was necessarily to have them as rental housing, but that's not prohibited either. The prohibition would be that if you're building these extra dwellings on the farm, they should be located in a cluster together so you're not expanding and taking up valuable prime agricultural lands, and the same restrictions on lot creation would apply to these new dwellings. So you couldn't build a new dwelling and then sever it off. And prime agricultural land is so if you're going to take advantage of these policies and build additional dwellings on your farm property, they have to be for the farm and may be maintained with the farm.
Okay, good. That's how I understood it. So I was kind of surprised I understood it. And then the next is the urban agriculture. What exactly does that mean?
Thank you. Through you, Chair. So this is where the County of Renfrew is actually a little bit ahead of the curve. So when we last updated our official plan, we already included urban agricultural policies into the plan and encouraged local municipalities to consider this when updating your zoning bylaws. So this could be anything from growing food in the urban areas, and in our official plan we actually expanded it to livestock as well. So whether I know some municipalities already passed chicken bylaws, it could extend to, I know beekeeping is a very popular hobby both in our urban and rural areas for some people, and so it's these policies that encourage our urban land to be used for food production, and also a growing, I'll say, trend where looking at the future will be vertical agriculture, where you could build it could be a multiple story building and be used for growing crops or even like fish production. And there's some growing trends in how we can grow and use our urban areas for those agricultural purposes.
Thank you. And my final final comment is the 1,700 draft approved housing units. The use it or lose it comments or policies from the provincial government in the past, does it apply to these 1,700 draft units?
Thank you, through you, Chair. So it does, and we do have examples where I think I made reference to some of our draft approved subdivisions go back to the 90s. And I think just last committee, we had another committee report, one of the subdivisions from the 90s received final approval. So we know that we do have these historic subdivisions that are out there. This new change does apply to those, and this is more also with regards to the Planning Act. So a lot of those subdivisions that received draft approval back in the 90s did not have lapsing dates. So they're indefinitely there, and then at any time that once the developer clears their conditions, they can move forward with those subdivisions. The changes of the Planning Act have implemented a mandatory 3-year lapsing date on those. And so that those old plans of subdivisions that are existing out there that we have in the county, if developers don't start moving on them and proceeding to meet those conditions, they will lapse and they will lose those draft approval.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, then item number 4, the Climate Action Plan update. Questions or comments? I see none. And the delegated authority approvals, is that just an information item as well?
Yes, sure. Thank you. I guess that would be considered an information item as well, that we did proceed with the Verde GIS upgrade mapping application at a cost of $48,960. This was a previously budgeted item, and this is going to be moving forward our website to, I think it's mainly updating it so that will work with the most recent changes to JavaScript. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments or questions on item number 5? Seeing none, then I will need a mover and a seconder for approval of the Development Property Department report as a whole. Moved by the warden, seconded by Councillor from Greater Madawaska. Any comments or questions on the report as a whole? Seeing none, all in favor? And that's carried. Is there any new business? I see none. We have no written reports at this time. So our next item is a closed meeting, and we have a recommendation that the Development and Property Committee, pursuant to Section 239(2) of the Municipal Act 2001, as amended, move into a closed meeting to discuss a litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, and it's in regards to a severance application. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor from Laurentian Valley, seconded by Councillor from Town of Petawawa. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We are now in closed. Thank you, and welcome back. And we are back in open. And at this point, the next item is basically the date of the next meeting, being Tuesday, October 15th, 2024. And then I will need a mover and a seconder for adjournment. Moved by Councilor from Laurentian Valley, seconded by Councilor from Greater Madawaska. All in favor? Thank you. We are adjourned.